Jake asked, "Is my mom all settled into our place?" He was clearly having second thoughts about his decision to move his mother into our home without even asking for my opinion. All the responsibility for the move had fallen on me. "Yes, she's all settled in. I just finished sending my stuff back to my parents' house too," I replied. Jake was shocked, clearly not expecting that I would move back to my parents' house. After a moment, he let out a mocking laugh and looked down at me. "What are you talking about, Ashley? You can't possibly live on your own." He had no idea how determined I was or how much I'd been earning on my own recently. "You just spend all day staring at a screen on your phone or computer. You can't handle life by yourself," Jake sneered. "Well, I just have to prove him wrong. There's no way I'm relying on him for help anymore. I'll show him that I can take care of myself." "My name is Ashley and I'm 46 years old. I've been married to Jake for about 20 years. We don't have children." Jake is an elite banker and very particular about details. Whether it's his personality or his job, he's always been the type to fuss over everything. He also seems to adore his 56-year-old mother. My mother-in-law had been living alone since my father-in-law passed away 3 years ago. She often pressured Jake, as her only child, to give her a grandchild, but there was a reason we never did. Jake didn't want children. Even though he acted like the perfect son in front of her, saying, "Yes, we'll have a child soon," in private, he would always tell me, "I just said that for Mom. Having kids is too much trouble. I don't want that." So here we are, childless at this stage of life. At our age, having a child would be risky, and we've both given up on the idea. Honestly, deep down, I didn't want to have a child with Jake either. There were plenty of reasons for that, starting with how his mother treated me before we got married. "Hey Ashley, I don't think you're the right match for Jake. A banker's wife should be more, well, different. This marriage won't last long," she had whispered to me, making sure Jake didn't hear. But to him, she would say sweetly, "As long as Jake is happy, that's all that matters." It was exhausting dealing with her two-faced behavior. It was the same when it came to the issue of having children. "I want to see my grandchild soon. When will you show me one?" Jake's mother would ask. "I know, Mom. I'm sorry, but Ashley doesn't want any," Jake would reply, putting all the blame on me. It was frustrating because he was the one who didn't want children, not me. Over time, I started disliking Jake for always blaming me, especially when he seemed to love his mother more than anything. It made me wonder if he was what people call a mama's boy, since he always listened to her and never stood up for me. "Ashley, why don't you want kids?" his mother asked. "She says it's too much trouble to have them," Jake responded. "Well, you're so cold, Ashley." "Jake, are you sure you want to be with this woman?" his mother would say, and Jake would just laugh. "It's fine. Without me, Ashley couldn't survive," Jake said smugly. "Ah, how kind of you, Jake. Ashley, you need to thank him properly," his mother added. "Yes, who do you think is supporting you?" they would say, laughing together. It hurt, and it wasn't just about me. They also talked badly about my own mother. "Ashley is such a terrible person. I bet the person who raised her is even worse," Jake's mom would say. "Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree," Jake would agree. Hearing them insult my mother was too much. I should have stood up for myself, but at the time I was too busy taking care of my father-in-law. He was suffering from a rare disease that stiffened his muscles, and he couldn't do anything on his own. I was in charge of feeding him, helping him use the bathroom, and more. I don't know if my mother-in-law helped when I wasn't there or if she hired a caretaker, but knowing her, it was probably the latter. She wasn't the type to take care of him herself. While I was doing all this, Jake kept feeding his mom negative stories about me. I couldn't stand it anymore. I didn't want to stay in this marriage. I had every reason to leave, and I couldn't believe I had put up with everything for so long. There were so many bad memories. Even when my father-in-law passed away, my mother-in-law said, "Ah, it's finally over. We don't need to waste money anymore, and now I can relax." I was shocked. That's not how you talk about someone you spent years with, especially when she didn't even take care of him. I did everything. Her comments about money made it clear she had hired a caretaker after all. At that point, I didn't want to be called her daughter-in-law anymore. But recently, Jake told me that she was showing signs of dementia. When I asked how bad it was, he said she was starting to forget things more often, which made me think it was the early stages of dementia. I suggested to Jake that it might be better for his mother to move into a nursing home, where professionals could take care of her. But Jake just sighed in frustration and said, "Don't you have any empathy? You live in our house, so you can take care of her here. That's how it's going to be." What was he even talking about? I was busy too. When I tried to explain that, Jake brushed me off, saying, "All you do is housework, so you can handle taking care of my mother. I'm busy too." He didn't care about how I felt or what I wanted. After all the things his mother had put me through, did he really think I wanted to take care of her? You're such an unpleasant woman, he added. Anyway, my mother is going to live here and that's final, no objections. It was clear Jake had no intention of listening to me, so I just said, understood, and started preparing for his mother to move in. I drove back and forth between her house and ours, loading up my car with her belongings. It was a small car, so I had to make several trips. Each trip was an hour one way and it was exhausting. I was the one paying for the gas, and I had no one to help me. I thought about asking a friend, but I knew Jake's pride wouldn't allow it. He would have been embarrassed if people found out he was making me do all the work to move his mother with dementia into our home, so I didn't bother asking for help. After a few days of moving her things, I started moving my own stuff to my parents' house. When they asked what was going on, I gave them a brief explanation. They comforted me, telling me, "You've been through a lot, and you've done well." Their support gave me the strength to keep going, but I still felt like I had to finish what I started. Even though my parents said I didn't have to go back, I told them I can't leave things unfinished. I smiled and went back to our house to wrap things up. When I got home, Jake was already there and he was furious. "Where have you been? You didn't even make dinner," he yelled. "I'll do it now," I replied calmly. "It's none of your business where I go." "What kind of talk is that? Who do you think is providing for you?" Jake shouted, like he always did when he was mad. He thought that reminding me he was the provider would make me back down. In the past, that used to work. I felt like I couldn't argue because he was the one bringing in the money. But now things were different. Jake didn't know that I had been working too. To him, it probably just looked like I spent all day on my phone or computer. "So what do you want to eat?" I asked, ignoring his yelling. This only made him angrier, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to bend to his demands like I used to. I had spent too long sacrificing my happiness for him, and I was done with it. Jake's sudden shift to anger didn't surprise me anymore. When he stormed out of the house, yelling that he couldn't eat with me because it would taste terrible, I used to panic. I would have rushed after him, pleading, desperate to smooth things over. But now, I simply thought, if I don't have to prepare dinner, that's a relief. I grabbed my car keys, ready to go grab some food for myself, but when I opened the door, there he was, standing right there, looking expectant. "Why didn't you come after me?" he demanded. I sighed, already exhausted by this charade. "You were the one who said eating with me would be distasteful. Why would I chase after you?" I frowned, frustrated. Doesn't he understand his own words? Jake sputtered, clearly thrown off, as if he couldn't believe that I didn't react the way I used to. He mumbled something about how I always used to follow him, then sulked like a child. It was embarrassing, really. He was 56 years old, but his behavior was so immature, it disgusted me. "Did you finish moving my mom's stuff?" he finally asked, as if he hadn't just thrown the entire responsibility onto me without even asking. "I'm done," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I've just finished sending all my stuff to my parents' house." Jake's reaction was exactly what I expected, disbelief. He actually smirked, that condescending laugh I hated so much. "What are you saying? You can't live on your own. You just stare at your phone and computer all day. You can't survive without me." I looked at him, feeling more pity than anger now. "No matter what happens, I won't rely on you. I can live on my own, Jake. You may not know it, but I can." He dismissed my words with a scoff. "Don't lie. What's the point of telling such an obvious lie? You've only been able to live because of me. If I'm not around, you can't survive a single day because you can't earn money." I wondered why he thought that, why he was so convinced I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet. But I didn't argue. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. "Even if I explain it, you won't believe me," I said calmly, "but I'm going back to my parents' house anyway." Jake, now visibly irritated, shot back, "If you're going back to your parents' house, we should divorce. Don't come crying back later, because I know you'll regret it in 3 days." I felt a weight lift off my chest as I realized this was exactly what I wanted. "That's okay," I said, keeping my tone steady. "I've already prepared the divorce papers. Please sign here." For a moment, he was taken aback, but he quickly covered it with arrogance, sneering as he signed the papers. "You'll regret this," he muttered with a smug grin, still convinced I would come crawling back. I just glared at him, grabbed the divorce papers, and left the house without another word. As I got into my car and headed back to my parents' house, I could feel the surprise on his face. He hadn't expected me to go through with it, but I did. And for the first time in a long while, I felt free. Jake's call started off strange enough. He was crying, which was out of character. I could hear the frustration and desperation in his voice, and when he shouted, "Stop it, Mom," I realized his mother's dementia had likely worsened, and now he couldn't handle it on his own. He begged, "Please come back. I can't handle my dementia-stricken mother and work at the same time." You must be in trouble without my money. I stayed calm and simply said, I'm not in trouble and I absolutely don't want to come back. His response, dripping with desperation, shocked me. We're a couple, right? Couples help each other. I paused for a moment. Yes, they do, I replied, but we are strangers now. He seemed stunned. What are you talking about? I'm in such trouble, he cried, and then he hit me with an offer. Okay, got it, I'll pay. How much do you want? If you look after my mom, I'll pay. You'll come then, right? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He thought he could just buy me back, as if I were some kind of hired help. What do you think I am? I shot back. Besides, I earn more than you, Jake. There was silence on the other end of the line. Jake sounded completely taken aback. What? How could you? I cut him off. There's a reason I never told you. You always disapproved of me working. When I once mentioned getting a part-time job, you raged about how women should only do housework at home, that it was shameful for me to work outside, and that people might think you weren't earning enough. So because of your pride, I had to work in secret. I desperately earned money in ways you wouldn't find out. His voice faltered. What job were you doing behind my back? Stock trading, I said. A friend taught me and it was a success. Now I've become a professional trader, so don't worry, Jake. I can live on my own. Jake didn't say anything for a long moment. The power dynamic between us had shifted, and for the first time, I wasn't the one feeling powerless. I was free. Please come back. Why don't you take care of your mother yourself? You're the one who asked for the divorce. You really filed for divorce? Jake sounded shocked. You thought I wouldn't? I filed it right away. If you have anything to say, speak through a lawyer, I replied coldly. Jake kept repeating, I didn't mean to really divorce. Please come back. I told him I was busy and hung up. Then I contacted a friend who helped me find a lawyer. The lawyer agreed to represent me right away, and from then on, all communication with Jake went through the lawyer. It took some time, but I finally finalized the divorce. The lawyer later told me what happened with Jake and his mother. Jake's mother's dementia had gotten worse. She would sneak out at night, eat food from stores without paying, and was banned from many places. At home, she made huge messes, smearing things on the walls and eating things she shouldn't. She also screamed a lot, and the neighbors were constantly complaining and calling the police. Despite all of this, Jake refused to use any help like a day service, saying, People might think I'm a bad son if I leave her in someone else's care. It's shameful. A capable man like me shouldn't do that. This would all be easier if Ashley just came back. Without me to rely on, Jake was falling apart. He was a shadow of his former self, looking thin and exhausted, with hollow eyes. His appearance had become so bad that people in the neighborhood were talking about it. When I heard this, I thought, serves him right, but I didn't say it out loud. I just thanked the lawyer. As for me, I moved to a beautiful apartment with my parents. Jake used to belittle my parents, but now I'm glad to be living happily with them in a nice place. Finally free, I spend my days enjoying the beautiful view and feeling at peace.